You're very welcome. So like you already know, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. I'm going to be asking you some questions, and I'm sure you're very ready. Pastor Sam said whilst he was speaking, the Reverend has knowledge to everything. That's why the introduction says he's a polymath, And he also said something. He said he's more spiritual than he shows. We see the funky side of Rev on social media, the Rev side, but there are other sides to him. So we're going to be finding out how he was able, with all these sides to him, navigate. He is also known as the bridge. Did you hear that? So we have the perfect person for cultural and relational intelligence. He's well experienced. We don't need any notes. We don't need anything. This is a body of cultural intelligence you see sitting here. Are we ready? So send your questions. We want to know how he navigates the Gen Zs with the boomers and the millennials and the alpha A's and all that. Okay, so our first question goes. You want to say anything, sir?
Yes, I actually do.
Yes, it's working. It's working. Oh.
Yeah, I actually do. First of all, I do not take it for granted that you've invited me to come and speak at this platform. And I want to honor the grace of God upon your life.
Thank you, sir.
It takes a lot for a woman to draw everyone around on a Saturday afternoon when they should be with family and friends. So definitely you must carry something that makes people to be here. So I want to say well done, and well done to your husband to have been able to release you to do what you are doing. So a lot of respect for Pastor Tony for the great job that he has done for being able to. It takes a humble and a great man to sit at the back of the hall and savor in what his wife is doing. That's a man and a half. One more time, not to Pastor Tony.
Yeah.
And also, I think it would be unfair of me to continue this conversation without honoring my brother and my friend, Pastor Sam. People always say he takes me around the world, and he's such an amazing man, humble, a great man. I just love him. I love him dearly, and there's a lot to learn from him, and there's a lot I'm learning from him. And there's a lot I want to learn from everybody here this afternoon. And so let's go on the journey. Let's learn together. God bless you.
Okay. So I spoke rhetorically when I was speaking, but I would love for our audience to have a knowledge based on experience. So experientially, given that you've traveled to over 60 countries, in the world. He's a globetrotter, So what's the difference between relational and cultural intelligence that you have experienced, experientially?
Okay, very interesting question. Relational intelligence and cultural intelligence. Relational intelligence is your ability to form relationship with people to the point where there's trust between both, and then creating boundaries so that you do not mix match what is inconvenience for both of you. Now, it's deeper than that because most people don't know how to form relationship or how to maintain relationship. The reality of life is that it is not what you know that will take you to the height of achievement in life. It is who you know. More than anything else is the people that knows you. So what you know only gives you the academic expertise that open the door for you. But it is when you are engaged that the people you know will be able to connect you to the point and the place that you need to be. That's why there are many people well qualified, well positioned, well educated, but they never go beyond the capacity of the place where they are. Where those who are able to develop social relationship are able to move beyond what they are. But then relationship has different dynamics. The relationship can be organic and relationship can be organized. So relationship that is organic, you meet people, you just love them. Like when I met Pastor Tam, when I met Pastor Joanne, it's organic, you meet. But then it can be organic and it cannot go beyond being organic. But it can be organic to become organized because you invest in that relationship to get it organized to the point of leveraging. And then some relationships, they are not organic. I just like Pastor Adedeji, and I want to engage with him. So I organize intentionally what it means for me to relate with him, and that organized relationship then become organic, where we now become friends. Are you getting what I'm saying? So, but it's important to understand that the relational intelligence, even when you are engaging with people, because if you don't, you'll not be able to create boundaries. And boundaries mean that what you can accept or engage with one person might not be what you can accept with the other person. For the fact that you have created a boundary, Pastor John and I used to talk about this, called concentric circle across people. So I might have 5 friends, but they are all in 5 different relational concentric circle because of the intelligence involved. What do I mean by that? So this particular friend of mine can be a stingy guy. Right? It doesn't spend money, but it's still my friend. So I cannot use the formative intelligence order that I have for him for all of my other friends. So it means that when I go out with him, I know for sure he's not going to spend. So I have to relationally, intelligently know that there's no point in him paying. Right? But it doesn't stop our relationship. But I have intelligently put him in a concentric circle. So I can have another friend that you can be so nice when we're having conversation, but when we leave, he's going to talk bad about me. So when somebody says, did you hear what Pastor Joan is saying about you? I'm not offended, because relationally, I have put him in that concentric circle, and so I'm not offended, because you are only offended when you have an expectation. When you don't have an expectation, you are never disappointed. And so it helps a lot to understand how we relate with different people within different spheres. Now, cultural intelligence is actually different. The world started with academic intelligence, IQ. How smart you are would depend how you go, either in business, in work, in whatever you do. Then it moves from IQ to EQ, emotional intelligence, being conscious of your emotions and the emotions of others. But then they found out that the latest potent intelligence that people need to advance in this world is the cultural intelligence. Why? Because we live in a global world. A global world that people begin to see things through the different lenses of cultural context of different people that they have themselves. So what does cultural intelligence mean? Is that you engage people not from the eye of your own cultural narrative, from the eye of their own cultural narrative, so that you are able to enter their world without having a biased mindset. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples. And different things means different things. A grasshopper in America is seen as a pest. The same grasshopper in China is seen as a pet. The same grasshopper in Thailand is an appetizer. Did you see? So what cultural intelligence means is that if you don't understand the nuances of the meaning of how this means, you'll be interpreting it differently from your own view without understanding the culture of where the people come from. Now, another example, I was in Afghanistan, in Kabul, in Afghanistan, for a meeting. And I went with a friend of mine, a colleague of mine. And when we got to the meeting, having an English mind, as you got to the meeting, you want to go to the meeting, go through all what you need to do what you want to do, pack your bag and go. And then we got there, and this guy just started talking and asking the guys about how many goats, how many sheep, how is whatever. And the time was going. And I'm going like, we didn't come here to come and ask about cow, goat, sheep. We came here for serious business. And it went on, and we're drinking tea and we're whatever. I was becoming irritated because I don't like my time being wasted. And we went on and on and on and on. And just about 10 minutes before we finished. And then my colleague now introduced why we came there for. And the guy didn't even bother. I said, yeah. Don't. No argument, nothing. So when we left there, I said, what happened? He said, cultural intelligence. In this world, if they don't know you and know that you care for them and understand about their personal life in terms of what things are, they are not going to sign any deals with you. In our own English world, if I sit down with you, asking me about, because in England, we mind our space. Don't come to my space. If you come too close, there's a problem. So don't ask me about my wife. Don't ask me about my children. Don't ask me about my goat, about my sheep. Just do the business and go. Not more than that. Now, you can see that we have to see the world through the cultural mindset. And that's why many of our churches are not growing in the United Kingdom. Because we do not have the cultural mindset and the nuances to understand what it is. And that's why even many of us are not doing well at work, because we don't learn to understand the cultural narrative of the culture where we find ourselves, so that we're able to engage authentically. And it has been said, for anyone that will be successful in the 21st century global world, cultural intelligence is as key and as important like you might want to know it.
Come on, give him a round of applause. Do you see why the introduction said a polymath? He can just go on and on and on and on. Thank you very much, sir. So now talking about, before we go to the next question, you talked about that's why our churches are not growing. And when I spoke, I said, not because you're trying to be culturally intelligent and transit from one culture as you knew it to another culture. So what if people are trying to transit and don't want to lose themselves? So now we have our churches filled with Black people, predominantly Black, and we are still trying to maintain the culture we know as it used to be, uphold the values as we know as it used to be. And, so we find it hard to transit because we don't want to lose the ones we have. They say bird in hand is worth millions in the bush, isn't it? So how do we now do it not to lose the ones we have, trying to transit into a different culture?
That's a very good question. We have to think whether we are doing church either as a missionary or we are transferring ourselves into a new culture to create another the world that we miss. There are different type of churches, right? You can have a missionary church. You can have also almost what you call like a seeker church, and you can also have a culture imported church. It depends on which one you want to have. Depend on how you see your call. Not one is better than the other. But what is important in the cultural context, as you will see that most of us that have migrated from Africa into this country, it's very difficult for many of us to hold down the people of the land, particularly in our church. And there's nothing wrong about it. You have been called to your own people to be able to do that. The only danger in that is that sustainability and longevity for a long time will become a problem, because culture changes and the people changes. So, but what is it? Because you are only shaped by the worldview of what of your past experiences. Oftentimes, people find it difficult to change from what has actually shaped and formed them. And they are not able to change because they will become vulnerable if they let themselves go in terms of engaging, in terms of the new place which they found themselves. It's also a passion of the heart. Am I called to my people, or am I called to the people of the land? So and there's no difference. There's really not major things. Some people you were just called to your own people for now, right? But you just have to have in your mind that is for now, because in future you must have to transit between calling to your own people, and now your own people can become an influencer and shaper of the land, which will then mean you have to review your cultural mind in terms of how you belong. And so for many of us, what that means really is to engage and marry the cultural context of the land. Let me tell you my own story. I was part of a big church in London, Victory Christian Center in those days. We're not a big church. I mean, I'm talking about the early 90s. Maybe we're about 2,000 plus church. Well, we were a very big church. Anybody that knows this church in those days. I was the assistant pastor. And then, of course, if you are in the 90s, you're assistant pastor of a church of 2,000 pounds. How many of you know you are doing good? Doing good. I was doing good. Life was good and things like that. But in the midst of that, and this has to also be a calling. And I remember when God asked me this question, why do you think you are called to this land? That was the question God asked me. Why do you think you are called?
Praise the Lord.
And the answer is very simple. It's like, well, I'm called to this land to to do what I'm doing, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing in that context. And God said, no. You are called to this land as a missionary. And because you are called as a missionary, you will need to deconstruct your narrative, or rather, the right word is, you need to derope to re-rope. And that was very painful. It's painful in the sense that my journey then took me to go and work as a missionary for Anglican Church Mission Society for 7 years in this country. Now, you will not understand how that has shaped my thinking, my exposure, my experiences. Never sleep in a tent before all my life. I started knowing how to sleep in a tent, how to eat cold sandwich. Change of a cultural redesigning of my life. And part of that even made me to understand, because I always tell this story of one time I went to speak at a white church, because I speak a lot at white churches in those times. It was just all white churches I was speaking. And I spoke very well. I thought I've preached like Pastor Joan. I thought I've preached the whole house down. And I was standing by the door. You know, people will greet you as they are coming out. Until one old man stood and shook my hand and said, "Young man, you spoke very well with passion, but you lack content." I said, "Excuse me, sir." He said to me, "I like the noise, but the noise has nothing in it." He said, "Young man, if you are going to go far, add education to the passion." He said, "Study. Go and study." That was what took me to university to go and do my master's in theology, right? Because though I didn't like what he said, but I knew what he said was the truth. Because he was saying to me, go and learn how to communicate in this culture. Now, as you all know, I'm an Anglican Canon and also a pastor in Redeem. I can preach in 2 churches. I can preach in the cathedral in the morning and preach in a Redeemed church in the afternoon. Same message, but I'll never preach the same way. Why? Because the cultural context says to me, if you are preaching to an Englishman, you don't preach to his emotion. Are you with me? So you preach to his what? His intellect. So he's trying to deconstruct what you are saying. Are you reasonable? Are you sensible? Do you make sense? Have you read beyond the Bible? So if I'm speaking in the cathedral, first of all, say, last week I was reading a book called Rebel Mind by Matthew Said. And in that book, he said this and blah, blah, blah. And as I read that book, and I see the way Apostle John wrote about it. So in the mind of a white man, he's thinking he's intelligent. Let me listen to him. So I then have to draw from his intelligence to his emotion. And then it opens up. And then I don't instruct when I'm speaking to a white audience. That's part of the cultural differences. I inform, I don't instruct. So when you inform, you allow them to use their mind based on the information. The problem we have as Black people is that we lack knowledge, so we don't inform, we rather instruct. So I then allow him to actually think within his mind that I like the information, let me process it and see how I can find action in it, right? Whereas if I come and speak to Pastor Joan Church, I'm speaking there tomorrow, I'm going to be shouting, hallelujah, somebody, come on, because that's what they're going to understand. That's what they're going to get. They're going to say, my God, anointing is flowing. Look at it, my God, and things like that. They are banging the chair. They are saying, yeah, shebo, yeah, kata, in the middle. If I say that in English, they say, what are you talking about? What kind of nonsense is that, But at the same time, being culturally agile, like what she said, is to know when to operate your core and when to operate your flexibility. So everybody have a cultural spectrum. The problem with most people is always operating within your core. Your core is shaped by your background, your experiences, where you come from, your exposure, and your life. And most of the time, we communicate, we engage from the core, not knowing that agility is what determines those who can influence. So being agile means you can be flexible, but you are communicating the same thing. when you are engaging with people. Not only that, but also in everything we do. Either you are a business person, it relates the same thing. Cultural agility, even in your children, as Pastor Sam was talking about. I wish I could answer all those questions. Cultural agility, absolutely different from the children we are talking to. You see, a typical pastor sitting down here, you will understand that in your church, every Sunday, you are speaking to 5 generations. You are speaking from baby boomers to the alpha generation. 5 different generations. How can one narrative without cultural intelligence that spread across demography speak to everybody? If not, if you are a baby boomer like myself, I'll just be speaking about I'll be speaking about the way I will speak to my old people, speak to them. So the kids will be saying, what's he talking about? The Gen Z will be saying, what's wrong with that pastor? The millennial will say, we don't understand him. So your ability to be fluid and flexible is what will determine. That's why some churches, no matter how they fast, no matter how they pray, the church will never grow. The growth is not in fasting and praying. I was consulting for a very man of God, very famous man of God. He said, if it is anointing, he said, anointing is, I have it double. Even I wake the dead. He said, but the church is not growing. And he said, I've come to the understanding. It is not the anointing that grows the church. It's the leadership. And understanding what you need to do. That's how you make the difference. And it's a function of being agile within the complexity. Know when you have to change the narrative of where you're going. Because if you don't, you only be speaking to a particular one audience. And you will lose every other person. And that affects your growth, either in your life or what you do. Also in your family as well, to your children. You can't talk to a Gen Z, most of you that have children or Alpha generation, the way our parents talk to us. Our parents will say to us, don't let him know I'm at home, but say, I'm not at home. I'm not at home. You know, don't let him know what you are doing. Don't let him know. Cover it, you know. When your yam is coming up, you cover it, you know. But we live in a generation that is so open and vulnerable. They are saying to you what they ask the question, why? And because nobody answers us when we question why. So we too end up to say to them, don't ask me why. I'm your father. Just do. So it boils down to the fact that we are comfortable in instructing but not informing. Look at all our pastors when they talk to us. Do they inform us? They instruct you. Tomorrow we are here, meeting 2 p.m. Why are we meeting? Don't ask me. We are meeting. We have a program next week, Saturday. Everybody must come. Why the program? Why are you coming? No, just come. So we keep instructing rather than informing and allowing the why. Because most times, the cultural intelligence is not a function of what you want people to do, but why. And many people never answer the question why. Sorry, I could just go forever.
I know. Are you being impacted? Please, can you just start putting down your questions? Because after I'm done with, the questions I made for us, we would like to have your individual questions. I don't want to assume that I'm asking everything that's in the mind of everyone. Thank you so much, Revi. Thank you. So, the next question here is, what principles inform the dynamics of cultural intelligence, and why is it important in our world today?
Well, there are core principles. We call these capabilities, or is it capabilities? Yeah, capabilities of cultural intelligence. If you really, really want to dwell into it, one, there must be a drive. There must be a personal drive. I really want to learn about other culture. I really want to know what's in there. For example, most of us who are here in UK, maybe you've just come from Nigeria, maybe you've been living here for long. There must be a drive to learn. Because interestingly, is that most of us do not even know about the English culture. We are limited within our culture. All our friends are our own people. The food we eat is our own people. We don't explore out. We are comfortable within our own convenience. So there must be a drive. There must be a motivation. I want to learn about it. I want to go and dwell. Now, it might not be comfortable. It doesn't need to be comfortable, but it is the intentionality that drives our motivation. because of where we're going, right? Which means you have to enter the world through the lens of the people in their own world. And those capability allows you to now develop the third capability, which is called the strategy. So what strategy am I now going to use to be able to get to be culturally agile? So you now begin to develop it. Whether you're going to go out with people, you're going to do that, you're going to open yourself up to some unusual things. For a pastor, what can I do that is unusual? Because in reality, it's only a brain that is asking the why question that can provoke intellectual advancement, right? So most of the time, you can only advance and be a life changer or a history maker in this world if you pause your mind to ask why. Why is this cup here? So most time people don't know why. But then if you get the answer why, you must ask the second question: what can I do to make it better? I read a newspaper, 1962, the year I was born. I saw a newspaper there that says, one lady wrote there that American newspaper, that the time will come when you have a mobile phone that you can use to take picture. And every single comment that is impossible, it can never be done, is that was in 1962. But look at your mobile phone today, what it can do. Now, it takes a creative mind that probe it, but why and why not? Until you can ask yourself why not, you will never develop the strategy to make the difference. And once you guess the why, the next question you should put your mind on is, what can I do to make it better? And that's what makes innovation to be possible. That's why you drove one car 3 years ago, and this year they've changed the car to something. Because somebody, when the car was made, somebody would have been asking, why is this? Why? So is there something you can do to improve? And those are the questions you should ask ourselves, ask your church members, ask your family, ask your business mates. Why are we in these things? So because that motivation, develop a strategy, then set you up to begin to have an action point. What can I do to make a difference? Either culturally, within the people I engage with, in my workplace, in my church, in my whatever. The danger is most people are convenient and comfortable within the status quo that they put themselves or people put them. Those who make a difference in this world are those who doesn't see the line. They color outside the line. In fact, they don't see the line. There are three types of people. Those who are inside the box. They say, don't just color inside the box. Because they have been patted all around, never color outside the box. So their brain, their ability, their capacity has been shaped and determined by one person, color in the box. And some people will say, you know what? I'm going to color outside the box. And every time they color outside the box, somebody correct them. Go back into the box. But then they come to a time where they say, I don't want to color inside the box. But you know, I belong to the third type of people. Even if you put a line, I say, erase it. I can't see it. I color anywhere. Because that's what creates a mind of innovation and takes you out of the status quo. And then you can become the very best. You see, every human being, they don't really get to use the intellectual capacity and the faculty that God has given to them because of fear. Because of fear, if a white person comes to my church, I'm in trouble. If a white person become marry my daughter or marry my son, I'm going to be in problem. You must be able to open up your mind for the variety of what God has called us.
Come on, a round of applause. Rev, bringing you back to what you said while speaking, you said a lot of us don't know or understand the British culture. Now, we know one of the British culture of, one way they socialize, which is a part of their social, culture or behavioral pattern, is always going to the pub. And I've listened to you so many times, and you've given so many illustrations about, when you worked with Marks and Spencer. And, as believers, I'm sure a lot of us here are churchgoers and not just churchgoers, believers and pastors in our own right. So we've been trained or groomed to believe that going to the pub is a sin, is no place for a believer. But you said in one of your talks, I heard, you said pub is where decisions are made. So how can we, break from that belief that as a believer, I'm not supposed to be in the pub, but then I still want to be in the realm of affairs where decisions are made. So how do we balance it?
Is the word pub can paint a picture in your mind that can distort you. But if you see it as a place for social gathering, it changes your narrative. It's a place, just like we meet, where we meet, is the place the people meet. Only that they drink, and it's not everybody that drinks alcohol. There are some people there that drinks that doesn't drink alcohol, but it's just a social place of engagement. But it is the culture, that's part of the culture. The culture of this country, pub is important. You never go to any city, town, or village. The first thing you're going to see there is what? Pub. Everywhere there's pub, because pub is where you get the latest news. Pub is where you know what's going on. Pub is where you get got to know what it is and what the pub is where you make friends with the locals. It's in the pub. I love going to pubs. I love it. If I like having pub lunch on Sunday, it's really good. Sunday roast with all the drippings falling all over it, putting more cholesterol in my body. It's okay. It's just one of those Sundays, And I love a bit of a good shandy. Oh, hallelujah. People say, well, yeah, I love shandy. I like to drink shandy once in a while when I sit in the pub. Right? So, but you get conversation. I guess the biggest leading people to the Lord that I've ever experienced in my life was in a pub in Shepton Mallet on a Wednesday afternoon when I led 32 grown men to the Lord in a pub on an afternoon. Wow. They were drinking. And I got into the pub and they asked me the question, what are you doing here? Because I was a stranger. And I told them. And they said, you want a drink? I said, why not? And they bought me Coke. And we started a conversation. And I started talking about, they started listening to this strange man, black man in a white conversation hood. But because I've understand how to engage, I'm not saying to them that you heathens, you are going to hell. Look at you drinking. No, I engage with them with their conversation. I engage across different board because part of cultural intelligence in evangelism is do not engage with people from your own area of ministry competence. That's why asking question is key. When you ask question, you know the level where the people are. And then you engage with them at that level. Because your level might be higher than them. And they cannot interpret or understand what we are talking about. According to Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 8, the guy is saying, are you lunatic? What's that? He doesn't understand. So you have to speak to him in the language that he understands. I love Apostle Paul when he preached about the unknown gods. Right? And if you study theology very well, why did he study? He got to Athens and he saw all manners of gods. Everything in Athens in those days, when it happens, they have to put the name of a god. It's the god that doesn't exist. So he saw all those gods. And Apostle Paul will have thought, how do I reach out to all these people with all these manners of God? And he saw a sign with an unknown God. He said, that's it. What a great opportunity. And then he asked them because he has information. And then he began to ask them about what is this thing about unknown? They didn't know. Then he explained to them because he understood that many years ago, there was a flood. And in that flood, it destroyed the whole town. And when the flood destroyed the whole town, they have to acclaim what causes that flood to a god so they can worship that god. And so what they did was they threw out about 50 rams or 50 goats or something like that. So they reckon where all the goats gathered together, that must be the what causes it. So they would have put and whatever, a place of worship there. And they'll say it's that God. But when they did that, the goats just scattered all over the place. They did exactly that. The goats scattered all over the place. And then they came to an understanding that it's none of the gods that we have that caused this flood. It must be what? An unknown God. So because he knew that as a narrative, so when he engaged with them with information, he was able to now tell them that the unknown God you are looking for is not in an unknown God, that it is in your world, but the unknown God in Christ Jesus. Isn't that amazing? But if you don't have the history of the place, if you don't have the understanding and the information, you'll not be able to communicate with people at the junction where they come to know the Lord. And that's why the culture. So what did Apostle Paul did there? He used the cultural intelligence of the locals to preach the gospel, to establish what they have that is valuable to them as a metaphor to what they should really have. And that's what changes the game plan in Athens these days.
Thank you. Oh, too much sense. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Whoa, changing lenses is a game changer. I'm sure after we leave this place this afternoon, we are changing the game. So we've talked about ministry, for a bit. Let's go into business. So how do we practically apply cultural and relational intelligence in business?
Okay. You asked that question before. Many years ago, I was commercial manager at M&S in those days, and I was working myself hard. But I got all my colleagues get promoted. It just happens that they don't get. So I spoke to one of my boss and said, "What's going on?" And then cultural intelligence. That was what he said to me. He said, "We made decision on who going to be promoted in the pub, not in the office." And he said, "But when you finish, there's nothing wrong about it. You are always going home, going to church, going everywhere. Come to the pub once a time." Some of the conversation might be what you need to know. And it then helps me to understand that I have to change my lens in my social strata, relational intelligence, in terms of engaging with people, right? And I then realized that they get to know more about me, just like I got to know more about them in the business. And then it changes the way they actually pass, because you can be perceived wrongly unless, of course, people are able to deconstruct what is in your mind. So you are always seen differently. I don't know what's in your mind until I begin to converse with you. So, and then it then changes how we see things. And then in business as well, not knowing the cultural nuances of other people can actually close up the business. Okay, if you look at it globally, right? The way businesses operate, let me tell you a story, two stories that we see in business. An Englishman went to have a meeting in China. And then when they finished the meeting, they had a meal. And they brought food for the Englishman. In English culture, right? When you eat, you finish everything in your plate. In Chinese culture, when you eat, you leave something in the plate. Do you get what I'm saying? So the Englishman went with an English mind, finished the food, finished everything, because he thought in his mind, I'm supposed to finish up the food. The Chinese man said, "What an insult. Does it mean that I'm not a good host?" He tapped his hand. They brought double the food. Because for him, you must never finish the food. It makes me a bad host. So the Englishman was thinking, here's another food. My appetite. But I cannot leave anything. I still have to finish this one. So he was puffing and huffing and puffing. And on his own culture, that I mustn't leave anything, what did he do? He finished the food. So the Chinese man said, insult. He got another volume. It was at that point the Englishman said, I'm going to die. I'm really going to die. Why? Why? Because he hasn't learned the cultural understanding of where he found himself. Am I making sense to you? Now, same thing, if you go to Japan and I speak like this, and after I finish speaking, if I ask the people any question, Japanese will never put their hands up that they have a question to ask, because it's not in their culture to be confrontational. Are you with me? Yeah. So I, as the speaker, I can ask from now till tomorrow. Not that I don't have question, but they'll never put their hands up or ask any question. So what is the cultural intelligence there in business? I have to look at someone looking at me I have to look through the room. Who is looking at me directly, intently? Okay, it's you. Then I have to now ask you, what question do you want to ask? Are you with me? And then you will then ask the question. Why? Because it's called high relational engagement and lower relational engagement. Same thing with respect in leadership. If you look at our Western culture in business, and that's why most of us have problems, even in business at work, and our African culture, even in church, there's a lot of respect and value and position and authority placed on leader who we actually empower them to be dictatorial. Is that not so? Right? But in this part of the world, it is bottom up. Is that not so? They say it's bottom up. They make decision bottom and they pass it up. But in our culture, is what? Top to bottom. Like our churches. Pastor says it, you do it. You try that in Anglican church here. Nobody's going to follow you because he has to come from the laity to the PCC before he gets up in there. Now, you can see that there's a cultural difference even when we engage things in that manner. So even in business and in leadership, if you take our own African cultural sense in leading, if you have a group of people that are working for you who are mostly white, and you take that instructive, dictatorial, and pass it upon them, they will see you at what? Autocratic, bully, all sorts of things. That also, and they will say that you are a bad leader because you do not consult, you do not engage. You do not get people into the conversation. You make up your mind, this is what we are going to do, but no, it's a collective responsibility. Now, if I go back to Nigeria and I tell the people I'm working with, oh, go and think about it and bottom up, what are they going to say? Stupid leader. He doesn't even know what he's going. He doesn't know where he's doing. Right? Because we want to tell us what to do, we will do it. Don't let me think for you. It's not my job to think for you. That's why you are a leader. Why are you asking me to think for you? Think. Am I getting paid like you are getting paid? No, why? Tell me what to do. I will go and do it. And don't stop telling me and we think. I'm not thinking. Just I will do. Whereas in this part of the world, in business, is different. So when I find myself in boardrooms, sir. So when I find myself in boardrooms, many boardrooms here where I sit, I have to be smart enough to understand the cultural nuances of the people I am with in such a way that even what I'm saying has to make them think without being authoritative and instructive. So you have to pass it down to be able to engage. And that in businesses, it might work like that in our leadership. Yeah.
Woo. Are we enjoying this? Ooh. Are you writing down your questions at all? I've not gotten any. Ushers, can you please help with papers and pen? Yeah, okay. Now, this is somebody actually sent me this question before the start. And so this is a little bit away from the day's topic, but we said it's a no-hold-bar zone. So it says, but can purpose be tied to a geographical location? So the person wants to know if purpose can be tied to a geographical location.
Trying to find the right way to answer that question. God gives you a purpose, and your purpose doesn't really need to be tied to a geographical location to be so, because your purpose is only tied to your call, to your gift. Your gifts and your purpose, they work together. And it doesn't need to tie to a geographical, but it can be functional and more productive based on the resources that is available within a geographical location or a particular location for a time and a season, but not really. I think you can flourish anywhere because the gift of God is without repentance. God gives you the gift. You can be, throw me to Timbuktu, I will still function in my gift. So, and where your gift is where you find your purpose. And so I think it's not limited to geographical location.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Okay, now moving forward. How have you personally navigated the lenses of cultural and relational intelligence here in the UK? We know you are the bridge, so can you just give us, like, experiential knowledge if somebody's trying to navigate in that path you have told already?
That's a very loaded questions. You are asking me to tell you about all these years that I have lived, and I think I've gone through different toughs and down and lows of journey. The fact that I think everything is all inclusive in my life. And my wife is she's a Nigerian born in Britain, but very more British minded because she's schooled here in Britain. And so that on its own changed the way I see relationship. Are you with me? Right? It changes the way I see relationship, and it changes the way we are as a family. Then number two is the fact that going through the toughs of either church or ministry or work, I've gone through that working in the secular, got myself into a very good position, but then changed my culture when I came into ministry, went from being a Pentecostal pastor, becoming a missionary, from being a missionary, become an Anglican priest, still maintain my Pentecostal narrative, and then by the grace of God, for 10 years, I became the founder and director for One People Commission at the Evangelical Alliance, which brought together about 42 national churches that are in this country. So God gave me the grace to direct that movement for about 10 years. I pioneered and directed it, which actually exposed me to many dimensions of ministry and people and culture. And a part of that is in each experiences you learn what to do, you learn what not to do. You make mistake, you pick up your mistake, and you carry on in life in what you do. And traveling the world, 63 countries, I guess. So I've learned a lot in different countries I've been. One of the first thing I do when I go to any country is to think, my first thing is that what can I learn from this country that can add into my understanding and knowledge of engagement, because each country comes with different culture, and then you learn different things from them. What transiting culture does for you is expose your mind. It frees you from being in a particular box of the way you think, the way you react, the way you behave. It also frees you from the way you pray, and it frees you from the lens in which you see the scripture and the way you engage with people. It totally frees you, absolutely, along that line. I always talk the story about even praying. I'm sure some people have heard me talk about it. One time we were asked to come and pray in the Houses of Parliament, myself and a friend of mine, Pastor Agu, to be honest. And then we went to the chapel at the Houses of Parliament, and when we got to the door, they gave us a sheet of paper, and they said to us, "It's quiet prayer. It's quiet prayer." And so we got in there, like a room like this. Everybody was seated quietly. Nobody was saying anything. We are Pentecostals, yeah? So we look at each other. We said, are we not here to come and bind and loose? But it looks like nobody is losing or binding everything here. They said, it's quiet. So we remain quiet. No, if you have never had a quiet prayer before, what do? You sleep. So I fell asleep. It will elbow me, Rebbe, if you are sleeping, stop snoring. So, so at times it too, and we were there for 2 hours. So we agree within ourselves that it is God's way of allowing us to rest. Because we didn't know how to pray quietly. Because we believe that if you are quiet, God cannot speak to you. Is that not what they say? Open your mouth, you know. So, so this one that nobody's opening mouth. What are we going to do? You know, we can't pray. That's what we have. Open your mouth, and when you open your mouth, they say louder. You know, so I can't hear you. Whereas you're on top of your voice, they still say I can't hear you louder. You know, so the place will be going big, 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 back, back, back. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So we're used to that. We're used to that because we came to come and battle. Hello, culture. You respect the person talking. Thank you. So we're used to that. So we don't know that this would happen. So it was after we finished praying, they said, thank God they released us. And they said, we are going to another room, Moses' room, to go and do what? To go and hear what God said. Say what? In this sleep, God didn't say anything. So when we got to that room, so we said, between you and I, God didn't say anything. No, I enjoyed the sleep. Maybe that's what God came here. But we were amazed when one after the other, these people will stand up and they'll tell what God have said during the prayer. This one will stand up. So when we're going back, we were amazed within ourselves that so there's another way that we don't know. That even in your quietness, you can pray and God can speak to you. Deep revelation from that. Because our own cultural mindset is until we shout it down and stop it. That doesn't mean there is no place for that. There's a place for that, but there's also a place for reflective, quiet prayer. So we learn something about the culture of the land.
Wow. So this tells us that the name of Jesus is as powerful in a whisper as it is in a shout. Come on. Okay, one more question, then we'll take the audience's question. Actually, let's take the audience's question because of our time. How do we apply cultural intelligence in the family, most especially to the children in the UK from African parents?
Well, you will need to spend a lot of time with your children. That's the number one thing. You need to spend a lot of time with them. I probably spend a lot of time with their friends and spend a lot of time with what they are used to. Different people have a different approach, but most of the time, one of the reasons why I got very close to my children will be my father died when I was 13. But you know what? I can't even remember spending any time with my father all my life. Never. Maybe the only time I remember is Christmas time when they take us to a place called Island Club in Lagos. We member of the club and they just go and show you off as kids. But I can't remember spending that time. I'm not even know whether my father knows what I do, whatever, and things like that. But it's a conscious decision, particularly if you are now find yourself in this part of the world. How do I engage my children to the point whereby we have a relationship? We have to retrain our mind to understand what is important, what is valuable, and what is meaningful to them. And you can't do that unless you spend time with them. Now, I'm not saying what do you call it? The time that is convenient for you. I'm talking about the intentionally plan and program time with them so that you can have conversation. And your conversation must be so open that you allow them, because they are more intelligent, more smarter, more knowledgeable, and more informed than us. And the challenge most pastor has right now is that when you preach to that generation, most of the things you are saying, they can Google it. With the artificial intelligence now, they have a better sermon than what you are preaching through AI. AI tells you everything. Everything. AI will tell you. So what do we need to do? I think humility comes to most parents to learn from their children. So we must be able not to learn from our feet, but for us to learn from them. And then when we begin to have that, it's all about relationship. When we begin to have that relationship and that conversation, it makes a lot of difference because they're able to teach us. And when there's openness, we are brought up not to be vulnerable. No, you can't tell your children this thing is happening to you, that thing is happening to you. They say taboo. Some pastor will say, I've never fallen sick in my life before. It's a lie. Right? Some pastor will say, I'm married with my wife, we've never fought before. It's a lie. Do you get what I'm saying? So you can't say that when they know that that is what is happening at home. And then we wear the same clothes on Sunday. We are going to church. You are messing them up. They know this is not true. That and mom have just cursed themselves. But they curse themselves in the car. They come out from the car. They say, hallelujah, praise the Lord, amen. They say, what's wrong with this clown? So, and they are the first model that they see. They are our first mentors, and we are their first mentors. So we must be able to engage with them and don't force them. When my kids were still living with me, there was time I say, when you say, oh, morning prayer, whatever, it's okay until they are 13, 14, right? If you don't have any kid up to that age, God bless you. I learned that there are stages in children. So there is a stage before they turn 12. Before they turn 12, research says everything that they need about God, pump it into their life before they reach 12. Because that is the foundation. So no matter what happens to them after that, that foundation will always draw them back. It doesn't mean they're not going to go astray. No, don't let me promise you that. They will. Right? The best of all, they will go astray. But there's a purpose. Because the reason why they need to go astray is that they need to go to that school of knowledge. So when they come back, they understand what they are saying to other people. So if you look somebody like Pastor Sam, have you been a Christian all your life? Some people, so you have gone astray like me when I was at uni. I mean, my mom and whatever, I belong to all those nice clubs in uni. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so if you don't know, you don't know. Anyway, but I went badly astray. But now I can engage with anybody. Either you are 80 years old, engage. If you're 10 years old, engage. If you're rich, you're poor, I can engage with anybody. Why? Because your experience and exposure, when you are out in there, when God pull you back in, you have more experience to preach the gospel than somebody that's never experienced failure in their life. In fact, I always say this, I do not follow somebody who has never failed. No, I don't. I don't want to follow you. You don't know what failure looks like. Don't come and teach me. I'd rather follow a failure, somebody who has missed it, somebody who have messed up, that God brought back. Because they have more knowledge, information, exposure, experience. That would not be judgmental. Than somebody who, because what they are even hiding back home, they don't tell outside, and they become judgmental. So it's important to have that time with your kids in what you do. You create the time to talk, you create the time. In fact, I normally tell this story. I mean, she's grown now. It doesn't matter. When my daughter finished secondary school, I mean, is it A-levels or something? Said that my friends, they drink. They all drink. And I don't know what it is in the drink and stuff like that. And I just said I should let you know, and things like that. I want to drink. I said, no. Let me take you to go and drink. Don't let nobody. So I took her to the pub. So I asked the barman, I said, what do you like? They said they take gin and tonic. Give me gin and tonic. Double, give it to her. So she took it. I said, how do you feel? She said, I said, Oga, give him another one. Give her another one. So she give her another one. Say, Dad, I'm feeling funny. Oh, you never see funny. Oga, give her another one. And she said, I'm legless. Legless? You are going to be headless soon. She started to vomit. She started to roll on the floor. Dad, my father wants to kill me. My stomach, all throughout the night. When she woke up in the morning, I said, how far now? She said, is that how alcohol does to the body? I said, is it not better for me to take you to go and test it and you learn the lesson than somebody else taking you? I said, since you said you want to drink, you don't know how it is. Hey, I will follow you now and I'll buy it for you. And then he said, I don't know. He said, what do people enjoy in it? What it is? I said, you will never know until you have tasted it. Now you can go and tell your friends that thing is not bad. But don't tell people, my father took me to pub to go and get wasted. So what am I saying this? Spend time and be able to engage with them. Are they going to be funny later? It's okay. I've learned that because, like I said, they go through stages. They go through that stage of 12 years old, and then they come through the age of 12, 13, 14, when they are A levels or whatever. If it is a woman, they start to understand they need to look good, dressing somehow and stuff like that. The men, husky voice, they start to be stubborn or whatever, and the things like that. It's part of those stages. Don't be forced. One thing you must never stop is pray for them every day. Just pray for them every day. Pray for them as if your life depends on it. God knows what he's doing. They go to university. Some of them might decide to go to university and say, I'm not going to church anymore and stuff like that. It's okay. But doesn't take away their spirituality. That's what you need to understand. And then they might not want to come, like Pastor Sam said. The reason might be they might not want to come back to your church. They look at your church, they look at the people, they say, this one, I know I'm not coming here. Right? But what you need to do, encourage them to go a church that they are comfortable with. It's like one of my daughters, she said to me, I can never go to a church that the people there are more than 30. I said, why? She said, all my life, when I follow you, 2,000, 1,000 people, that's the churches we go. So he said, I feel intimidated. I feel, there's a trauma when I go to a church. He said, it reminds me of my following my father all along, going to festival, going to conferences. He said, I'm just comfortable where people don't say, this is Reverend Yemi's daughter. He said, I just want to be nobody. And then you have to allow, because he said, you don't understand the trauma of being a pastor's child. We don't. We expose them to a lot of things. In fact, people want to get to you, they won't get to you, but they're going to get to them. And they say things to them to demoralize them. But many, they will never tell us. So they carry that pain within them. And they carry that burden within them. So often times when they are saying, leave it now. It's just a man of God, a woman. No. Pay attention. If possible, go and fight. In fact, fight rough. Because who cares about the person outside? I care about my children more than I care about you. So it's important to understand that. So when your children see that, then they can then see that, okay, it's worthwhile in this journey. But what I'm saying to you, keep praying for them. Will they miss? Oh, without a shadow of doubt. But will they come back? Without a shadow of doubt. Will they serve the Lord? 100%. So, but put the foundation in them while you still have time and when they are still young.
Whoa. How is your optician doing? Because I said our speakers will be serving and engaging us like optician. So how is your optician doing so far? Excellent. Good. So many of us are going to be needing maybe varifocal or bifocal. I said I was being vulnerable. I also need a new pair of lens, and I think I'm getting a new reading already. At what point do you put an end to transcending from your culture to a new one in order to win or actualize your goals? Paul said to the Jews, I became as the Jew.
That's the text. You don't put an end to your culture is important. I love my culture. I love my Nigerian African culture. It's valuable, but it's when you enter into another world in terms of impacting them. That's why you are conscious through the lens of that culture you enter, but doesn't take away what your culture and who you are and your identity. There are many places that even when I'm invited to, and I know everybody's going to be wearing suit, I wear my Nigerian attire because I want to be identified. I am not white and I'm not English. I'm still African and I'm still a Nigerian. I'm proud of being. Only that I engage with the culture with a full knowledge, knowing where I'm going intentionally. But I also want that the identity that I carry as well is not lost. Because a man without an identity is a man that does not have, whoever. I must carry my identity. There are many times where there was time I was invited to the House of Lords or something, and everybody there, you look through the list, they are prince, they are lord, they are whatever. I don't know how I got my name there. So I just took one of these, this Agbada Ashok, the traditional Ashok. I just wore it, borrowed some beads. I don't even know where it comes from. And I even had the hostel, and I was going, before you arrived, I was going inside the bus. People inside the bus were looking at me. I said, if you like, that's your problem. You look like a masquerade inside the bus with the thing. So I got there, they are looking through the names. They said, whatever, as they're looking there, I put my name there, priest. So they came to me, I said, you're a priest? I said, yes. I am Prince. I am Prince. Prince from where? But what am I saying there is that there are times when you just have to be yourself. Yeah, within the context of find yourself. You're just yourself. You're just yourself. I'm so proud of the older I've become, the more I have come to appreciate my culture, and the more I have valued it, and the more I realize that if you are not arrogant and trying to claim a superiority complex about it, people are able to embrace your culture.
Thank you so much, sir. Another one here says, "Hello, Rev. Why are we struggling to be in places of influence, be it in business or work, compared to other immigrants? Example, Asians, they come and seem to excel quickly."
Yeah, because their own integration is a function of creating the businesses that help each other, that support each other to progress. We are very competitive in our own. We are competitive in church. We are competitive in business. We are competitive we are wrongly competitive. So there's a competition that is positive. There's a competition that is negative. So unfortunately, we are negatively competitive. So that's why we cannot, there's nothing wrong in people around the table to start a business. But once you start, somebody is thinking who is getting better, you getting lower, how do we do? So because of that, where there's disunity, there can never be a progress. So what those guys are, somebody comes here, buy a house, before you know it, they bought the whole street. Right? Through the money of one person. So if a Jewish man starts a business, starts selling something in a place, every Jewish person in that community, even if you are selling it lower, they will not come to your shop. They will go to that Jewish person's shop. Because it's believed that if that person establishes and become better, they will then create another one. But unfortunately, it's not the way with many of us. So what we have in our community is what I call a lone ranger. Is a lone ranger. So unless you start and stand by your own, it's very difficult to find partnership and people working together within our own community because of our negative competition.
Wow. Okay. You talked about impacting spiritual values in children when they were still young. Can you advise what to do for those that have missed this opportunity and their children are now above that age limit?
Well, I guess while they were still young, I'm sure you must have done something for them. So even when they are above that, if that is what you have done up to they reach that age, be rest assured they are coming back. And if you have not done anything to impact or input anything in them, it's only most of the time, even no matter how old our children is, they are still observing and watching us, what we do. Most of the time, it's not what we say, it's in what we do. Because no matter how I preach the gospel to you, it's not how much that I preach, but do I live it? So the conviction in our children is not much about what we say because they are very pragmatic. It's in what we do and why we do what we do because they are looking for modeling. They are looking for role model. They are looking for champions. I think there are many young kids like that whose their parents have given up on them. That these ones they are whatever, and they will say to me that Rev, I don't know what to do. So I just say, okay, give me time with them. I don't know, maybe it's grace for me when I meet up those kids. I meet them from the point where they are, and they can say that I'm not going to church, I'm not whatever, and things like that. I don't condemn, I don't judge them. If I say, come on, let's go and do something. And another time I could say, one is a pastor's child. I say, come to my house on Saturday, let's have lunch together. So he drove down to my house, we have lunch together. I said, you know what, I'm going to do a recording in this church. Do you want to come with me? I'm just having a good time. And we went there, we did the recording, we talk, we chat, and we say, what about if we catch up again? Gradually. But I know the parents can't do that. Maybe the parents have lost the credibility. But so when it comes to a place where you've lost it with the kids, try and find someone that you know the kid will respect and link them up together. Because most young people are looking for models, mentors, and those who will champion them.
Okay, this one here is quite lengthy. It's like an epistle. How does being culturally intelligent differ from losing cultural values? The Asians, for example, are probably the most successful, well, it's similar to the other one, non-British white people in the UK. What is more amazing is that they have achieved this success in politics, business, religion, and corporate endeavors while maintaining and upholding their cultural values in terms of their religion, dressing, and avoidance of things like alcohol and non-halal foods. What makes them different? Or does cultural intelligence affect Africans only?
It affects everybody. When we talk about the Asians, you talk about them establishing local, like I said, when you talk about establishing local businesses like you have, they don't need to, because you come to an area, is your money, one person has money, invites other people. By the time you dominate the whole place, you establish your own culture in that community, right? That's not a problem, it's business, local business. But you tell me an Asian person that is in politics that has not been culturally changed. You tell me. Because when you go to Cambridge or Oxford, you're changed. All of them in politics, Asian. Because you are taught what to do and what not to do, what to be and what not to be. So it's not that they forget their identity, but culturally, in terms of engaging, to be what they are. Rishi Kunash won't be who he is if he has not been transformed during his time. Did he go to Cambridge or Oxford? He went to one of those schools. Yeah. So he must have been taught culturally on how to engage and what to do and what not to do. So they are not, it's not being successful in politics and in public space is not a function of bringing my foreign abroad thing. It won't work. And I can tell you that. Because the people, see, in this country, people recommend you. They recommend you for a couple of reasons. They could recommend you to use you most of the time, if you are for another culture, or they recommend you because they know you are the one that can fight their bid. Right? So they understand what kind of people and language and all that they need. You don't get to that kind of, trust me, I have an experience in this place. You don't get to that kind of a place if your culture, because they check you out. They check, there are some things Sam knows that I can't say to you here, where they've checked me out. They will check you out in places that matters. And if you don't fit, if the heart doesn't fit, you ain't going nowhere. They just be smiling at you, you know, and it ends there. It ends there. You ain't going nowhere. You know, if they really want you, that they want you, it will not be in public space. That's the way this country works. They invite you to one of those clubs and one of those dinners in central London. And by the time you enter there, you realize that you are entering a different culture, different from your own. Have you ever been in a place where they are speaking English and you're not hearing the English? I've been there before. They are speaking the same English. And I'm thinking, they are not speaking Cockney, they are not speaking whatever. He said there's an English and there's an English. You are straining your ears to hear, because you know they will intentionally draw the word down. You know, you are saying, what is he saying? You know, because it's intentional. It's intentional. By the time you are saying paddy, they say this one not free. This one not get out.
Oh my God. I'm really trying to compose myself as a host, but why people not let me? Okay, the last one, because of our time, I'm sure we have so many questions, but I'm sorry, time wouldn't permit us. But tomorrow, if you live in Accrington and its environs, join us in church. You'll be having all of Rev in church tomorrow. How do you bottle up your anger in a member who provokes you all the time, or a colleague who is very rude and talks to you in a rude way all the time? So he goes to second one, says, how do you use emotions to facilitate thinking?
Emotions to facilitate thinking. You can't use emotions, because if you're emotional, you are not thinking. If you're emotional, you are subjective. And then your mind becoming objective is not a reality. So you have to devoid yourself from emotion to have an objectivity towards an answer or a situation. And then the first one is that how do you deal with somebody who...
How do you deal with people? How do you bottle up your anger and a member who provokes you all the time?
You don't bottle the anger. You don't even that means you have to receive the anger before you bottle it. There is no need. When a member provokes you, just take it to yourself that that's another one. So some things you don't need to take serious. You don't need to take something serious. You just there are some people, they are born to annoy you. Anybody, you find people like that? They are, when you see them in church, if a pastor in church, there is a way they come. In fact, you try to dodge, they corner you. Because they are born to annoy you. They ask questions, they say things. Everybody might say, "What a great sermon." They will say, "Pastor, the sermon today, it looks like you didn't prepare." Whereas everybody is saying, "What a great word." You say, "Pastor, did you pray last night?" or something like that. So they are there to discourage you. They are there to annoy you. They are there to put you down. So I said something about concentric circle. So once you find that people like that, don't react to the emotion. That circle, just put them there. So when you see them coming, it's about to annoy me. So you prepare yourself. And you say, "I won't be annoyed." So when he or she finish talking, you almost ask, "Is that all? May God bless you." Concentric circle, go. And then you must also learn the art of deleting. Right? If you don't learn the art of delete and move on, you will carry everybody's garbage in your head. Every single pastor or leader must have the art of deleting. So as this brother is coming talking to me, if I cannot solve the problem there, then, three things. If I can't solve the problem there, then, I will refer him to somebody that can solve the problem, either there, then, or after. The moment he leaves me, delete. There's no point in carrying his problem to I have my own in my house. Who am I talking to? So there's no problem. So you must learn the problem of engaging with people, dealing with it there and then, referring them, deleting it, and move on. So when you get into your car, you are going home after church, you don't carry anybody's baggage. Because if you carry it, another one is waiting for you next week. How much can you carry? So you must learn the art of what? Delete and move on. God bless you.
Wow. I have been wowed. And I'm going home with my new pair of lenses. Who else is going home with their new pair of lenses? I am. I think by this time next year, when we are gathered for ALS 2024, God willing, we'll all be coming with new sets of lenses and testimonies. Thank you so much, Reverend Yemi. Thank you so much. That's a wow. I said to you guys that they have a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much for that experiential lecture. He tells stories a lot, and these stories gives you practical steps to take and follow. Thank you very much. Right about now, I'll be giving my vote of thanks. So thank you everyone for being a part of this. I'm sure you've been highly inspired and transformed and provoked. We are not in a church service. I would have said, I'm sure you've been blessed. But I'm sure you've been blessed. You've been inspired and provoked. Are we together, please? Can we have decorum? Can we change the culture? When the speaker is speaking, please pay attention so you hear. Thank you. We have a survey as well, a feedback, because we want to keep getting better and better at what we do. So please, can you fill the feedback forms, please? Tell us your opinions, give us your opinions. Thank you very much. And just hand it over to the usher, but don't leave without doing that. And after, can we just wait behind and take some pictures, to have this memory? Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Thank you to our distinguished speakers. They have a very tight schedule, but out of their very tight schedule, they still made out time to be here. Like Pastor Sam, I'm sure he's looking at the time. He's looking at the time because he's ministering somewhere right after now. So thank you very, very much, sirs, for being here. Thank you, everyone. And to my husband, thank you for supporting me. Thank you for letting me do what God has called me to do. I'm very grateful. Thank you very much. And to my children, they're everywhere. Thank you all so much. And Open Heaven, this summit is powered by Open Heaven Accrington. So I want to say a massive thank you to every member of Open Heaven. We were here till very, very late last night, and it doesn't even look like. So thank you so much. Thank you very much. God bless you.